Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Our Life, Our Journey.
Our truth.
So excited to have you connected. Always, we're excited to have you and yours watching this station. We appreciate it so much. It means a lot that you are locked into this channel every single week, and so many of you let us know that this is blessing you. So while you're there, make sure you like and comment.
And subscribe and share.
Please do. We want to make sure we continue to build this community. And of course, we're always excited to be able to share with you what God gives us to share. And we're excited about this particular episode because it's going to be a blessing to you. So many people use this as date night, man. I think that's a blessing, right? Isn't that cool? Like,
it is funny. It's cool.
Picking us out.
Well, it's funny because we run into them like when we're out and about, and they're always telling us what they enjoyed. And sometimes they're like bickering back and forth because they're arguing about what was the best part or what have you. It's really funny. I love it.
Funny. We love it. We love it. Make sure you follow Dr. Steph out there, Dr. Steph Walker. Follow me at Joseph Walker 3 out here on IG. We hope you'll do that. It means a lot to us if you did, and we appreciate it so much. You know, it's going to be a great topic today. You know, I'm sorry. Like, how do you know when to say or how to say I'm sorry, and how do you move forward?
Well, you're an expert on that.
See, there you go.
Would you like to share?
Want to be starting something, always trying to start something, trying to get over,
Yeah.
trying to get under,
Too low to get under.
too low to get under.
Yeah. You're stuck in the middle.
What's the
I
word?
don't know. Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa.
Hold on.
Mama say, mama sa.
You sure it's not like, I'ma say it one more time, I'm not gonna stop. I'ma say it one more time. What y'all think? Bro, I'ma say it one more time, I'm not gonna stop.
Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa.
What in the world is mama say, mama say?
I have no idea, but I know that those are the words.
All right, y'all let us know what's right. Which one's right? I'm gonna say it one more time, I'm not gonna stop.
And where did you find that?
YouTube.
Can someone please confirm what the words to the Michael Jackson song is for us, please? The words are for us, please.
Okay, confirm. Let us know. Let's see who can get it right.
Mama say, mama sa, mama kusa.
Wow. Anyways, there you go. So I'm sorry if I'm wrong. And you know, one of the biggest things, though, for real, though, like one of the biggest, I think, challenges in relationships, and whether friendships, relationships, etc., is how do you say I'm sorry?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I want to just kind of jump on this first because I believe, and she's going to say, well, you have a lot of practice with this, right? But I believe it's important that you'll never say I'm sorry until you acknowledge you were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the acknowledgement of the offense is what's, I think, important because that takes a great deal of humility.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to move away from your hubris or your pride
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to acknowledge, you know what, I messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes hard,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes, as you often say, what stories are you telling yourself in your head?
Stories are you telling yourself in your head for
Yeah.
you to have that kind of response
That
to
kind of
something that
response.
someone says or does
Yeah,
that is not meant to be offensive or what
Yeah.
have you,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, sometimes we do tell the stories in our head. We tell these narratives and we believe this kind of thing in our head. I
And
think,
your reaction is like,
yeah, what's going on? So I think, like, it's tough sometimes, though, acknowledging that you're wrong because sometimes you want to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
Well, I also think that it stems from this idea that being wrong or being incorrect is bad,
okay.
right? And it's not. Like, I think it's easier for me to apologize frequently because I was raised in an environment where it was okay to make mistakes. I was raised in an environment where, you know, everyone's entitled to a bad day, right? You just don't want to make every day a bad day, right? Everyone is entitled to miss the mark every once in a while. Everyone is entitled. If you trip and you fall, guess what? Who cares? Get up, right? Dust yourself off, apologize for whatever mistake that you've made, and move on. Life goes on, right? And sometimes people are not raised in those types of environments, and they're constantly penalized for
That's where I was
being
going.
wrong.
That's where I was going, right? And that's a trauma, right? That's a trigger.
Yeah.
Because when you are penalized for the error, you associate, you know, admitting that you're wrong with some kind of, you know, retaliation or some kind of, you know.
Make the assumption that a retaliation will occur or some sort of punishment will happen as a result.
Yeah, the punishment, right? And it's hard, right? That's something to really think about. That's something to be studied, something to process. So, you know, sometimes, well, why don't you just tell me the truth? Why don't you just admit it? Well, sometimes you're going down triggers. You're going down a path with a person that's saying, well, if
Mhm.
I admit this, then what's going to be the collateral damage of me admitting
Mhm.
that? And so a person rather just not say anything or just say, I'm not wrong in this because they see it as judgment or punishment. That is
Mhm.
so rich,
Yeah,
babe.
no, that's good.
And that's
That's
something
good.
I think we need to think about because it's not black and
Well,
white.
yeah, and I think like in life we've come across those individuals who no matter what they do or no matter what they say, even when it's blatantly obvious, they won't admit that they're wrong for whatever reason. And then you begin to realize that in their mind, wrong means if I'm wrong, they associate that to mean that I'm a bad person.
Wow.
And that's not it at all. Like, you can be incorrect, you can make mistakes, you could have said something that may have hurt someone's feelings, or you could have made a decision that impacted someone negatively,
That's it.
but that does not make you a bad person,
Right.
right? Sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes you are operating within your own version of honesty and truth, not recognizing that that is not what's really happening, right?
Yeah. That's good.
You know,
So let me ask you this question, and maybe somebody can help me with this. So, for example, sometimes when you grow up, and sometimes there's certain responses to errors. For example, as a young kid, I remember vividly, and I don't think it was meant maliciously. I just think it's the
right.
way you were raised. I think it's the
Mhm.
environment, the
Mhm.
culture, etc. I did my first Easter speech. I got up, and I see you laughing. It's a shame. So I
Sorry.
got up,
Yeah, I've heard this
and I
story.
actually like forgot the words,
Yeah.
and I was like shamed publicly.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. You
like
told
I
me
was
that.
shamed publicly.
Wow.
So that I viewed that mistake as consequential. Like
Wow.
if I don't like ace this, or when I would make
Mhm.
mistakes, like if I would my father would come down to school and would like pull me out of class and like literally whoop me in front of my classmates. Yeah, this is real. Like, so, or, this is real stuff. Like, and so the public response
Your
to
public humiliation.
humiliation,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it kept me out of jail, kept me there. Yeah, all those great things. I thank God for that. But these were deterrents, right, to do right. But as you grow older, you begin to realize that you're always on this thing of I've got to be perfect. I gotta make sure that everything's aligned. I gotta make sure
Mhm.
everything's right. Because if I don't do right, then something's
There's
incredibly wrong. There are
consequences.
consequences and shame. And so then you're often looking, maybe y'all in this therapy session with us, right? But you're looking for validation.
Yeah.
Like, did I do okay? Was it okay? Like did they enjoy it?
Mhm.
Because that's coming from a place of historical shame or
Mm.
not being good enough.
I had no idea.
Yeah, in real time.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? You
Yeah.
today years old when you discovered that. Isn't
Yeah.
that real? And so you think about that. Like you think
Yeah.
about, being shamed in front of your friends or shamed in front of a church or shamed in front of safe places, so to
Yeah.
speak, school. And then you grow up and you begin to realize how that can be traumatic. And then so when people come at you for things you've done wrong, it triggers that.
And you
You didn't,
put up all of
yeah,
these barriers.
you didn't do it, you didn't do this, you this, and then what happens? It just takes you back to that, and you're never
Yeah.
good enough. And then your response is off on what? Am I not? Do you see anything in value in me? Do you see anything?
Uh-huh.
And that's real, right?
Mhm.
Oh, that thing's deep, isn't it? Oh,
Mm.
see there?
I had no idea.
Yeah, and a lot of people watching me right now, a lot of men, a lot of the
Yeah.
people out there have experienced that, and then it's easy to just say, "You just don't tell the truth, or you just don't do right,"
Yeah.
and you
There's
realize
a reason.
there's a
There's a reason behind it. Not
yes,
understanding the why behind the what
isn't that something?
is so critically
Isn't that
important.
something?
And on the flip side, because I was raised in an environment where it was okay to make mistakes, like I'm quick to point them out,
Easily,
right?
yeah,
I'll be like, oh yeah, that's great. And I think also coming from an environment where when people, for me, were pointing out my mistakes, they weren't pointing them out in a negative way. They were pointing them out so that we could do better next time, right? So, like, for example, in medicine, we call them PDSA. So, plan, do, study, act. You do something, you observe it, you see what happened, you identify the errors. How can you make this better? You have a conversation about it right away, and you move on so that the next time, because the next time is going to be the next patient that's walking in the door or the next patient that's in the next room. And so these cycles are happening constantly and very quickly. And so I can now recognize, based on what he's saying, like, I'll say, oh, yeah, that's great, that's great, that's great. But can you do this differently next time? Or did you notice that? In my mind, making the assumption that it's not a big deal to be corrected in that way and that it's just going to make us better, make us stronger. But now that I'm hearing him say that, it's more like, well, why couldn't you just leave that part out and just say only kind things? Because
Yeah.
now that's triggering.
Which goes to that book, right? Oprah's
Yeah.
book,
What happened to you?
What happened to you?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, isn't that powerful? And
Yeah.
that's real. So I think it's important, right? I mean, to look at that at the foundation. I know we went really deep on y'all real quick, but I mean, it's important because that's a real important thing to think through. People are saying I'm sorry, or people are in that place where they have to show contrition or they have to do that. You have to know the place of which they're coming. So it takes a great deal of humility. That's the first thing. It takes humility to admit the offense, but I think the person that is looking at the person who's made the offense must go and understand, have more empathy for that person's historical journey and trauma. And I think that's important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think one of the other things I think is knowing that sometimes we say this all the time. Can you say I'm sorry when you've done nothing wrong?
That's a good one. And I definitely had to work on that, right? Because for me, like, if I didn't do anything wrong, I'm going to say I'm sorry, right? However, what I have learned is it's not always about what you have done or if you feel like
Yeah.
what you've done is correct or incorrect. It's about how it made that person feel,
Yeah.
right? So even if what I did was not an error, the way that they took it, right? And so I have found myself saying, I apologize for making you feel that way. That was not my intent. My intent was XYZ. So really trying to make sure that he understands, like, why did I say it? Why did I do it? That it was coming from a good place. Like we had this conversation not too long ago, right? That it was coming from a good place and it wasn't out of anger or frustration or I didn't have an attitude, but the way that it was received, it was triggering.
Yeah, that's real. And sometimes, you say it so often too. You say, do you want to be married or do you want to be right?
Yeah.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be
Facts.
married? Right? That's just sometimes you got to just say,
Right.
you know what, pick my battle. I'm sorry. And I've learned too that I'm sorry sometimes is about, I'm sorry about the way this made you feel.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you love somebody, you care about them, it's not so much about arguing about right and wrong. It's about if this thing has made you feel a particular way and I love you, I care about your feelings and how you process that thing. And I've had to learn that. I think I've done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, you
right?
do well.
And that's important. I think, and that's how you're able to really come to a place of reconciliation because the person knows that you truly are not visceral or you're not, malice,
It's not coming
callous,
from a
place of malice and all that,
And sometimes though, it is, right? Like sometimes even amongst loving relationships, like you're getting into this argument and I know his buttons and he knows my buttons and he'll say something and I'll say something and he'll say something else and then I'll go for the jugular and just dig deep.
See, that's how we can have reality show.
And then feel awful.
It would be a mess.
Because of his trigger, his response.
She go to the white meat on me. I mean, like, did you just
Oh yeah? Oh yeah? But what about this? And then instantly I'm regretful.
Yeah. I'm like, and she'll just walk away and I'll be like, man, you just left me out here like totally open, bleeding to the white meat. I'm like, gosh.
And you learn that that's not healthy or helpful. So we don't do that as much anymore.
As much. That's so real. One of the things though, a part of this, I'm sorry piece is about how do you move forward though. Like after you've said it.
Well, I think also just to take a step back, like someone once told me, and I heard it, and it used to bother me, but I do understand what they're saying. Like like when I would hear people around them apologize, they would say something like, well, don't apologize, just change. Like, don't apologize. Apologies mean nothing. Well, I actually think apologies do mean something because apologies to me mean that you actually recognize it
Yeah.
and can admit it to yourself
Thanks.
and me.
Thanks.
Right? Because some people don't apologize at all and then they show up the next day like nothing happened. Okay, it's a new me, new day. Let's move on. But they have failed to acknowledge
the offense.
privately or publicly what they have done or said or what have you. And even when you don't think that you are wrong, still at least the very least acknowledging the other person's feelings or response as being valid, I think is tremendously important, right? And so I do think that verbalizing a response is important. And then moving on.
I agree. I agree. One of the things I'll insert here, just as a bishop talking to you, sometimes you have to move on
Oh, without
without waiting for somebody to
to
say I'm
apologize.
sorry.
Yeah, because sometimes you're waiting for an apology that will never happen.
Oh my God.
No, I 100%
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, it's not
I
happening.
agree.
And if
Yeah,
you're waiting for
yeah.
that apology, it could be agonizing. Like, aren't they gonna say something? Maybe one day they'll wake up and come to their senses. No.
I just want them to apologize.
No.
And every day you wake up with that angst in your spirit. At some point, you gotta let it go. Yeah.
And let it go. Yeah. And I think that's important, right? Because a lot of people, I see their lives on hold. They're emotionally unavailable, all because somebody did not apologize, right? So I think the moving forward part is about once you do, actually apologize. Once you do that, moving on is about now I'm not going to allow the residue of what occurred to continuously live in this space,
Yeah,
right? I think
yeah.
that's important, right? Because you don't want to end up playing like, it's like you paying emotional taxes on it forever. Like it happened, it keeps coming up in the conversation, but you did this, but I thought we moved on from that. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that after you truly apologize, truly talk it through, and I think it takes time, right? Women have to process. You got to walk. You got
He
to.
likes to apologize
Okay,
and then
let's go on.
like
Life is good. Let's
act
move.
like it didn't happen. Like tomorrow. Like, yes, you apologized. Yes, I acknowledge that you apologize, but I still have to process what happened and recognizing that men and women process information differently. Right. Men apologize and it's over. Versus most women, many women, I should say, because I don't know everybody, many women, I hear you. Thank you for your apology. But in the meanwhile, I still need time to process this, right?
Yeah.
And I might have a question tomorrow, next week, next month, 6 months from now. It doesn't mean that I didn't accept your apology. It means that I need closure and I want these few questions answered.
Yeah, and that is agonizing for men. Honestly, it's just torture, hazing, to say the least. However, if it's necessary, then you must endure it.
But I'm worth it.
You are definitely worth it. Whew. I say some brother out there felt me on that one, like, man, Bishop, help a brother out today.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, and so, but I think it's important, though, that you don't hold that person, you don't hold it over their head forever.
I think that is important. Thank you for saying that because I think one thing that I learned is when you do keep bringing it up over and over and over again, it's like pulling back the Band-Aid all over again. And it doesn't allow the person to almost like rehabilitate or to move on from that thing, right? And so like you don't want to get stuck in this cycle of constantly defining somebody by something that they did or something that they said over and over and over again. Said it, did it, move on, right? And then on the flip side, if you do find yourself continuously bringing those things up, once someone has admitted an error, guess what? They're less likely to admit errors in the future, right? So you have to be mindful. If you're the type of person that wants your partner or friends around you to feel safe admitting mistakes, then you have to be that safe space. Allow them to admit the mistakes. Try your best to be emotional about it. Thank you, whatever, as emotional as possible. And allow the unit, meaning you included, to move on from the situation.
Yeah, that's so true. I think the going forward part is so important, right? Because every relationship you're gonna have, moments where you're going to have to say, I'm sorry. You're going to have to work through that. So it's something you can't get around. I think that what our goal in this episode was to help you understand is, one, to understand historical trauma that comes with people viewing, I'm sorry, or they've done something wrong based upon what has occurred in their own life in terms of
Yeah.
historical shame, etc. Hope that blessed you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about understanding the power of humility, accepting that, whether it's on a job, etc. To say that, you know what, every time somebody brings something up, she brings up a good point because there was nothing, I think, there was no maliciousness in what she was doing. She was just, it's to admit that a person has a opportunity of growth does not mean that that should be offensive to a person just off the bat, right? And sometimes on your job, a boss may say, hey, we need you to do this and that. You're like, well, I'm never good enough and I'm this or that. You're taking it too deep and without understanding that the person is trying to push you toward excellence. And I think that's the fundamental difference there. I do think it's important, though, to make sure that you do reconcile the fact that sometimes you got to say, I'm sorry, when you haven't done anything wrong. And you got to be willing to go forward. And you have to understand how men and women process. Men deal with it. It's a period. Women process. And that's okay, guys. Deal with that, right? But I think ultimately the goal is, can you move forward from it? And can you not repeat the very thing that you kept saying, I'm sorry for again?
Which is key.
Which is key. Jesus
Right.
told the woman with the issue, the woman rather who came to him, the woman who fell before him, and he said, who was caught in adultery, rather. And Jesus said, where are your condemners? And she says, they're gone. He says, neither do I condemn thee. He says, now go and sin no more. In other words,
sin no more.
don't come back with this again. And at some point, if you said, I'm sorry for the same thing, baby, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, the same thing, that's a whole different, you got to go back to last week's episode. That's when it's time to pivot, right? But when you understand, though, truly that a person has said, I'm sorry, but then they're willing to make significant changes, that's how going forward happens. I'm willing to make significant changes, investing in my path forward to be a better person, that we can be a better union. That's what makes the relationship go forward. If the person's not willing to change, they're pretty much like, you know what, we just going to have to have an impasse right here. You're going to have fundamental problems right there. And I think that's an important thing to say, right?
Yeah.
I've learned that. I'm a changed man. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. You're
Yes,
a changed woman.
Yes, indeed.
You're a changed woman, girl.
How so?
Ooh, let me tell you. Okay. Number one. Y'all write these down. No, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. I think we have both changed for the better. I think that sort of you understanding me and me better understanding you has helped me be definitely more empathetic.
Agree.
I think that you have become more open and you share more, and I think that you've become an amazing listener, and you pick up on my nuances without me even having to say anything, because you pay great attention to detail now, in terms of who I am and what I represent. And so thank you.
Amen. If you're going to be with her, be with her. Right? No, I love it. Well, I hope this has blessed you guys. I really do. This is so important, man. And maybe this is an opportunity for you to reflect back over some relationships or things that have happened in your past and decide, you know what, I need to just say I'm sorry and move on. Or maybe I need to just accept the fact that somebody's not going to say I'm sorry and move on with my life. Ultimately, what we want you to do is to move forward. To not allow this to be a place where you're stuck in offense and stuck with some unrealistic expectation.
And let me say this too before we close. Like, I've had, at least on a handful of occasions, people call me out of the blue from like years ago, right? Who have called just to apologize. And not that I was waiting for their apology, because I wasn't. I mean, years had passed. But the fact that they were able to do that, I could sense gave them closure for whatever reason. It was eating them up for whatever reason. And so, like, if you find yourself in that situation and you need closure from a situation that you haven't yet to apologize for, don't be afraid to pick up the phone or pick up a, text or send an email. Don't send an email, but like, find some way of communicating with that person, to apologize, because I feel like frequently apologies aren't just for the other person's sake, but they're also for your sake as well, in terms of your own personal closure and your ability to move forward. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I feel like even though I wasn't waiting for those apologies, it did make a difference in terms of how I saw that person. And it clearly made a difference for them in terms of their ability to move forward and not carry that spiritual burden that had clearly been carrying.
Amen. Amen. Well, you heard it here loud and clear, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much. I hope this has blessed you. Hope you will say I'm sorry to somebody, right? And hope you can just kind of move on with your life and not allow yourself to be stuck in this place of, pride, but get to a place where you recognize it's really liberating to say, you know what, hon, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
So make sure you follow us. Follow Dr. Steph again at Dr. Steph Walker. Follow me at Joseph Walker 3. That's Joseph Walker 3. And we want you to be a part of our conference. It's getting close, babe.
Let's go. Countdown.
Oh my God, Becoming a Couple of Destiny Conference. Make sure you register for it.
Yeah.
Right now, the information on the screen. We
Here
want
in
you to
Nashville,
register.
we'd love to see you.
We want to see you and yours. Get off that couch, make a road trip. If you're in Nashville, come on over to the Antioch location. Let's make it happen. Let's grow our marriages, grow our relationships. It's going to be so dope. Cannot wait. Great speakers. We'll be talking about that soon. So stay tuned. Look forward to seeing you there. And until next time, we thank you. I'm Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Peace out.